Hey, and welcome. In this week's Retro Hour, we're going to be taking a look back at the original Crash Bandicoot on PlayStation 1. For those who've never played Crash Bandicoot, it is a 3D platformer that arrived in 1996, developed by Naughty Dog. The series very quickly became one of PlayStation's jewels in the crown. It was one of those franchises that PlayStation gamers quickly surrounded and really sort of fell in love with. And it all began with this one here. Crash Bandicoot 1 is a very fun game in my opinion, and it was obviously remastered in the Insane trilogy a few years back, and I just think it holds up really well in its core aspects. Obviously, as an early PlayStation 1 platformer, it's going to have some jank, and we'll talk about that as we're making our way through the levels here. As we make our way to the main menu here, Crash introduces himself to us as he ducks down under the Crash Bandicoot logo. We're going to wait a second here because if you give this about 10-15 seconds, it actually goes into the story cutscene. And it's funny because you don't actually get to see that unless you sit here and wait at the main menu. As you can see, we can load games and we can use passwords. This game double dips in that regard, so you can save your progress and get back to where you were if you don't have a memory card. But I'm just going to let this play through here so you can enjoy the story.
But Dr. Cortex, we have not determined the cause of past failures. Moron! This Bandicoot will be my general, and he will lead my Cortex commandos to world domination. This time I shall reign triumphant. We are closer than ever before. Quickly, into the vortex! But Dr. Cortex, the vortex is not ready. We have no idea what it could do. Failure again. Capture him! Uh-oh. Prepare the female bandit.
That's really all the story you're going to be getting in Crash Bandicoot 1. Unlike its sequels, there's less emphasis on the story in this one and more just on a more pure gameplay experience. Obviously, the levels try to tell a story through the locations and the characters that we see, but for now, let's just dive into Insanity Beach, where we'll get an example of this pretty much straight up. Here we see Crash Bandicoot washing up on the beach, and something that I really like about Crash Bandicoot 1, if you look in the top right hand corner, you can see the Cortex's hideout, which is where Crash was just now, way off in the distance. And one thing that happens in Crash Bandicoot 1, we'll be seeing that silhouette throughout many of the levels, and it'll get closer and closer and closer until we actually get back to the hideout. It's a very small detail. I love though that it's there because it really does kind of bring this whole world together. As you can see, Crash Bandicoot is a very simple 3D platformer. We're here collecting Wumpa Fruits. 100 Wumpa Fruit will grant us an extra life. We get those by picking them up off the floor, or we get them by smashing boxes. This box here grants us a mask. Several masks will allow us to get the Super Mask, which you'll see in a second, but their main function is to act as a way for the player to get hit and not be killed. That's a checkpoint. When we die, we'll be kicked back to there. When you collect 3 of the masks, you get the Super Mask here. The Super Mask basically allows you to race through the level temporarily, smashing boxes without having to spin, and also taking out enemies as you go. It's insanely useful, but it's quite rare to get, so you have to kind of time when you get it if you want to make maximum use of it. As you can see there, because I didn't have to jump on those boxes, the mask did all the heavy lifting for me, which is why I was kind of keen to make use of it in that way. It's important as well to note that in Crash Bandicoot 1, you do need to get all the boxes on the level to get the gem in the level, and you cannot die. That last part in particular is important to note. If you die, the level doesn't give you the gem at the end, and I think that's incredibly mean. But there are various gems throughout the game. There are some keys that you need to get. And as you can see, I was able to get all the boxes on that first level, and Crash is very happy. It is important to note as well that you cannot save whenever you want in this version of the game. You either have to grab the password at the end of each of the levels, in which case you'd write it down so you could get back to where you need to be. Like, there you go, you get your password. or you will have to make use of the save system, which you can only do in the bonus levels or when you get a gem, as we just did. Once you're able to do that, you can save, and it does make things a bit easier. But here we go into Jungle Rollers. So this is really more of the same here. We'll grab the mask here. There are hazard boxes like the TNT box there. If you blow that up by spinning into it or jumping on it and not moving, you can die. You can also see there are various enemies that we're running into here. There are hazards along the way. That there which we picked up, if you pick 3 of those up in a level, it gives you access to the bonus stage, as well as giving you a chance to get extra lives. This is what I was talking about on the last level as well. If you carry your masks over smartly, you can just run through some of these levels really easily. You don't actually have to engage fully with the level, you can just sort of race through. And it does make you feel very powerful when this is happening, so it's a great power-up. You can also see here that the game is starting to put us in interesting positions where if we messed that up, we would have blown ourselves up trying to get that life. You can also see that I lost one of my masks because one of those skunks spawned right underneath me. When you do collect 3 of these tokens, you do get kicked to the bonus round. Now, the bonus rounds vary in difficulty. Obviously, this one's going to be very easy. There are more tests of skills, and you don't lose lives here, and you don't lose any masks, but you only get 1 shot at these, so you've got to make sure that you do a good job of them. You also can use these as save points, which I highly recommend because, as mentioned, the opportunity to save in Crash Bandicoot 1 will start getting a lot more difficult as we move through these levels, because some of the later levels can be very stingy with the positioning of the bonus round tokens. But back to Jungle Rollers we go here. You can also jump around on these pathways, so you don't just have to stay on the pathways, you can jump into the side bits if you really need to. It's a nice little sort of comfort blanket for players who may struggle. Now, I can tell you that we haven't got all the boxes on this level because halfway through the level there was an alternate path that we couldn't take right now. And if you do miss boxes, the game will show you this animation where Crash gets smashed on the head by the boxes. So if you don't want to see Crash suffer, this is how you avoid it, get in the boxes. So we're now coming up to the Great Gate, and this is the 3rd level of Crash Bandicoot 1. The interesting thing with this is that it's not really a 3D platforming level, it's a 2D platforming level. And I've seen some of the developers say that the decision to put these kind of levels in Crash Bandicoot 1 was made because they wanted to show that Crash could have worked as a 2D platformer as well. I personally feel that these levels are some of the weakest in the game, just because I feel that the 2D platforming is not super ideal for Crash Bandicoot in my opinion, and especially because I'm using D-pad controls. Yes, we have to use D-pad controls in a 3D platformer. It's not super ideal. We have to spin that wooden platform so that we can walk on top of it, and then we have to carefully make our way up these boxes here. You can see there's a checkpoint at the top here. We can use the little turtles here to get to that box up there. You can see there are some spike traps here, but once again, because we have the super mask here, it's not too much of a problem for us to just kind of make our way through the level and ignore them. Obviously, when we don't have that mask, we're not going to be able to do that. You kind of have to time your jumps so that you don't wander into these hazards. There we go. And once again, we've got the 3rd token, which will take us to the bonus round. So you can already see here how they've sort of started to up the difficulty. there are some hazards for us to sort of avoid here. And of course, as I just showed you there, the platforms in 2D are not on a 2D plane, so you can actually fall off by coming too far forward. So those yellow sort of dots above the exit there, when you have the yellow gem, you can continue this level. But because we don't have the yellow gem, which we haven't found yet, we are not able to actually access the final part of the level, which means there's a bunch of boxes which we didn't get our hands on there. And that's one of the things I really like about Crash Bandicoot. It really does have a great replayability to it, because as you're kind of going through these levels, you see things like that, and it's like you have to come back later. It's a really clever way of making people sort of come back and explore these levels a bit more. Now, if you've played Crash Bandicoot or seen Crash Bandicoot, you've probably seen this level. These boulder levels are pretty iconic. You pretty much have to run towards the screen, and you have minimal time to react to what's in front of you. So as we're jumping around here, we don't want to get caught under that boulder. If we get caught under it, it's instant death, even with the masks. I'm also trying to get the gem for this level. If you let the boulder crush the boxes, it will not count towards your total, so you do have to kind of keep an eye on where the boxes are. You can see the Wumpa Fruit here is trying to help us, but it also takes us off the path of the box. So it's very clear that the developers were having a bit of fun with this level. Love the music in this level, by the way. There are several versions of this level, and they do get progressively more harder, but one of the things that Crash Bandicoot does really well is that it sort of introduces a concept in one level, and then it'll build on it in future levels. So what we're playing through now, we'll be seeing future versions of as we make our way across the game. Up to now, though, we haven't really had to deal with anything too difficult. I think that one of the things that Crash Bandicoot does really well is it kind of layers in the difficulty. So as we're kind of moving towards the end of the game, that's where things are going to start getting really, really rough. But again, we're seeing a new level type here. This is on a river. We have to move upstream. I don't know how useful this is actually going to be on this level, because as you can see, this level is more about precise movements. We have to be very careful, because if we fall into the water here, we will be kicked back to the start of the level, and I don't really want that, to be honest. You can also see that we have to time our exploration through this level very carefully, because we do need to make sure we don't accidentally fall into the water jumping onto these lily pads. You can see here there's a enemy that will bite. You didn't get to see it there. Oh. You can also see there's fish that jump over the platforms that we're walking on. Those are particularly nasty, and we need to be very aware of those, because there are a few points in these levels where the fish will just randomly jump out, and if we're not paying attention, we will get hit. You can see there that that one ahead of us is slightly different in that it's sort of on a timer. We need to time our jumps so we don't accidentally get eaten up. You can see that there was an orange crystal there at the bottom, it looked like. Again, we don't have that right now, so we have to ignore it and move through the level. You can see here there's kind of a risk reward thing going on. If we want to get all the boxes here, we do need to jump on the boxes, but there's also the chance that we may fall down to our death. So we've got to be really careful making our way across here. Getting all the way to the end here, though, grants us 2 lives, which I'm not going to say no to. We'll save the game and then head back into the level. This level's a good place to talk about the controls of Crash Bandicoot 1. You have to remember that in 1996, dual stick analog sticks weren't really a thing on PlayStation 1. That wouldn't come for another year, I think, at least. And one of the big problems that Crash Bandicoot 1 has on PlayStation 1 is that the D-pad controls really do not suit 3D platforming. It's not so much a problem now, but it will become a major problem as we make our way through the game, because a lot of the jumps are going to start becoming more precise, and unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with those. Much like we're going to have to deal with this boss here. So this is actually the first mini-boss that we are seeing in the game. It's very simple to take out Papu Papu here. All we have to do is jump on his head several times and he will faint. We will be seeing some of these sub-bosses in the game. They do pop up every now and then. They do kind of act as sort of icebreakers, just to sort of break up the experience of going through all these platforming levels. So again, we're in Rolling Stones here. The level title here pretty much gives away what kind of level this is going to be. At this point, the player is being taught to sort of expect anything in these levels. You'll also notice that we lost our mask heading into this level, so we're not able to sort of carry over our masks through the boss levels. So that is another type of bonus stage. Those ones are actually a bit harder to find. They are more for the advanced players, and I think that we're gonna actually need a coloured gem to get them all on this level. So I don't think we can actually show that off right now. Kind of like here, how like the life is in the center and it's just surrounded by TNTs. As mentioned, the controls in this game are very much an acquired taste. You do need to sort of spend time getting accustomed to just how the D-pad works, because if you don't, it's going to be a very tough time to finish this one. It's one of the shortcomings of the PlayStation 1 console that the original sort of controllers didn't have analog sticks on them. So with the super mask here, we can just run through the rest of this level, and then we collect the third token, so we lose the mask anyway. Pretty funny, that. That's not good. We're gonna have to risk it here. Okay, we did. We made it without dying. That's good to know. You can see we've already got a lot of lives here. That's really good, because as we kind of make our way to the back end of this game, we're going to be running through those lives very, very quickly. Of course, we have to kind of talk about the Insane Trilogy as well. So that was released onto Xbox One and PlayStation 4 a few years back now, and they are effectively remakes of the first 3 Crash Bandicoot games. They do actually make a lot of quality of life improvements to Crash Bandicoot 1 to sort of bring it more in line with 2 and 3. Oh, so you can see there's a blue gem there, but you can see down beneath there is actually something down there. I thought if we jump down there we might be able to sort of get down there. I don't know if standing on the pillar actually will let us go down, so I'm just going to run through. We're just going to ignore that. But as you can see, there's quite a few areas in these levels where having the sort of blue gems and having the coloured gems in general opens up more of the level, which, again, like I said, it's a really fun way to kind of extend the lifespan of these games, because it's something that you got to keep your eyes on. Speaking of keeping your eyes on, this is Hog Wild. Hog Wild is one of the more infamous levels in Crash Bandicoot 1. It's effectively an auto-scroller, but in 3D. You basically don't have control over the momentum of the hog that you're riding here. You just kind of have to survive all the hazards. Okay, so I missed a box there. We're going to have to come back and do that. You also have to avoid these guys who are moving side to side. if you run into them, you just get knocked off. You also need to jump on top of those boulders. Missed another box there, so we're definitely coming back to this one. You can also see the hogs being sort of moved around on the rotisserie there. The good thing though is that when you've played this level a few times, you start to know where those guys are going to be when you need to come through, because everything on these levels kind of moves in a certain time scale. So as long as you kind of move at the right pace, and on this level you are moving at the same pace, you will know where the enemies are going to be, so you can kind of begin to predict and plan around that. I'm going to do this again. I think I can get all the boxes on this one. I do actually think I've got this in me. Okay. We got this, we got this, we got this. Let's just avoid you. Get the box here. So the split boxes like that are the hardest, because you have to move from one side to the other, and obviously you don't have the chance to slow down. Right. Okay, excellent. Wait. I only got 2 Wumpa fruit there. Did I miss a box? Did I miss that box? Did I miss a box there because like the hit detection was just slightly off? That's another problem with Crash Bandicoot 1. In Crash 2 and 3, you can actually see how many boxes you've gotten, but yeah, we missed that one box. That's very frustrating. You know what, actually, we're going to do this one more time. I'm not going to let that be how I end Hog Wild. This poor hog being ridden 3 times in a row like this. But as you can see, the hit detection in these games are quite nasty. So if you are not sort of pinpointing where you're going to be, the game will just not be nice to you. It will not be kind and give you the box. You actually have to make sure you hit it 100% on the mark. I almost messed up there. So this is where things went wrong last time. Let's see if I can course correct here. I did. I think I got that, yes. I think I got the boxes there. Now I just need to finish this level without missing any of the other boxes. As you can see, we always just need to go to the right there. If we were delayed for any reason during this level, it would change the location of that final enemy. But the thing is, like I said, because a lot of these Crash Bandicoot levels work on a timer, you can kind of work out where you need to go once you've seen an enemy a few times. So that's our 3rd gem. Quite happy with that, to be honest. So we're into Native Fortress here. Now the thing with Native Fortress is it's another one of these 2D platformer sort of levels. Definitely be wanting that mask there. One thing you have to remember as well with Crash Bandicoot is that this was pushing the PlayStation 1 pretty hard, even in the early days of the console, because I've seen some of the developers talking about how when they were making this game, PlayStation 1 had a very limited number of polygons that you could have on screen at any one time. So they had to find workarounds to make the game look this good. And I will say this, like, this is one of the best looking early PlayStation 1 games. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Okay, so you can see that we're being slid into the thing. Oh no. So what I did there, I hit the checkpoint and then I immediately slid off the other end of it. I think one of the things that Crash Bandicoot does really, really well is it just looks like a cartoon. And obviously, you know, realistic games were kind of like a thing on PlayStation 1, but did I just get thumped in the head by that? I think what Crash Bandicoot does really, really well is it just has this like really cartoonish style. It really does feel like you're playing a cartoon, and I think a lot of early PlayStation 1 platformers really struggled to kind of have like that kind of enjoyable aesthetic. Because there's quite a few that come to mind where it was more, they were sort of leaning on the fact that, oh, it's polygons, it's 3Ds, whereas like Crash Bandicoot actually does look like it's a fully realised world, and that's probably one of the reasons why this took off so aggressively in the early PlayStation 1 life. Quickly grab the lives there. And of course, trying to avoid the explosion, I just threw myself into the pit anyway. One of the things about Crash as well is that you've got to have patience. If you don't have patience and you try to rush it, that's when things start going very wrong in this game. And the problem with me is that sometimes I get a bit frustrated waiting. Yeah, we're gonna run away from that. Hit the monkey there. So we got our third icon there, which means we can go to the bonus round. You can see there was a box hidden just off screen there. The risk reward there was, I wanted the life. I didn't need the life. I could have avoided it. But I went for it and look what happened. So you can see here that the limited time platforms here, we have to kind of maneuver our way up here. If you fall down, you have to do all this again. So it's worth taking your time at this point. I want that mask. Oh no, we fell all the way down. So exactly what I was telling you there. If you do fall, you don't get fall damage, but you do have to do all this again. And it is about time management, basically. I seem to remember there's a skip here. You can see again in the background there, there's Cortex's base. Again, looming over the levels, sort of letting us see that we are actually getting closer and closer to it. You can see here though how we can actually go through this secret panel and we don't actually have to deal with all those traps on the foreground. Obviously, if we wanted all the boxes on this level, we'd have to do that. Take care of you two. Hit the checkpoint there. And as you can see, like, if you keep your eyes open, you can sort of avoid a lot of the hazards. Although, much like I said earlier on, trying to rush these levels is just a general bad idea. Again, you can see a coloured gem there. If we had that coloured gem, it would probably take us to another section of the level, which is currently inaccessible to us. There's a lot of sort of time-sensitive puzzles in Crash Bandicoot. You really have to be paying attention to the levels if you want to get through them without any issues. that up so badly. Bunch of lives coming up here though, that's going to be fun. Never going to say no to that. So as you can see, there are some boxes up here. If we were going for all boxes, I would definitely go for those, but unfortunately, well, why not? And I landed back on the arrow boxes, excellent. We're picking up a lot of lives here, that's really good to see. With the completion of that level, we now move on to the second island. So how Crash Bandicoot 1 works, you basically move between these islands, and each of these islands kind of has different types of levels on them. So, for example, you're not seeing any base ones, but once we reach the third island, there's going to be a lot of Cortex's base, and we're going to have to kind of look at that rather than a lot of the jungle levels. Again, love the music in this game. Okay, so that monkey rolled into me and I wasn't able to take it out. Again, I hit a checkpoint and then I immediately kill Crash, which is not the best thing to do. I shouldn't really be doing that, let's be honest. Gotta be careful on these lily pads as well. The lily pads are pretty much primed to fall if you hang around too long on them. Not these ones, just the ones that were floating in the water earlier on. So when I hit that monkey there, it actually pushed me to the left hand side. Very lucky that I was able to avoid that. But for a 1996 game, this game is gorgeous. I lose myself playing Crash Bandicoot 1 just because of how it looks and how it feels. It's one of those games to me that just has like an A+ aesthetic, and I can lose myself for hours just in the world that this game's creating. I do like Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3. I actually kind of prefer 3 over 2, but I just feel that Crash 1 does a really solid job of making everything feel like it's in one world, whereas those games kind of have hub worlds where you kind of go off to different places. Again, you can see we're being challenged in a slightly different way here to get all the boxes. I am not going to do that. I will not put myself through that. As you can see though, precise movement is very important, which is one of the reasons why you've got to take time to just learn all the nuances of Crash's movements. It's also worth discussing that Crash Bandicoot 1 has a particular reputation for being a very difficult game among sorts of modern audiences, and I think that that's kind of earned. As you can see jumping through this level here, there's a lot of hazards, there's a lot of ways that you can die, and the game is not shy about putting the player in very imminent danger. It's one of those things, I think, where when you played this at the time, it didn't feel that difficult. It definitely feels a lot more difficult coming back and experiencing this game. Oh, we're going to be playing Ripperoo. So this is another one of those iconic bosses. This is actually my favourite boss, just because of how silly Ripperoo actually is. The concept here is actually not that difficult. We just need to blow a TNT box up next to Ripper 3 times. So this one's all about timing. We have to time our jumps onto the big TNT boxes carefully if we're going to actually hit him. We can't hit him any other way either, so we have to make sure that we are timing the explosions very carefully. So as you can see, even though he was just jumping away, he was still in the blast radius. You can also see that because we hit him once, his pattern has now changed. He is actually sort of moving around the arena in a slightly different way. Also, don't let him jump on you. If you let him jump on you, like, he will hurt you like that. So we've got 2 hits in on Ripper here. Maybe one more. You can see now he's doing the sort of diamond pattern around the outside of the arena. Bit too early there. He wasn't quite ready to jump onto that spot. I think this might have got him. So we took out Ripperoo there. Again, not too difficult. In the sequels, he does turn up and he is a bit more of a pain in those ones because some of his abilities can be a bit more damaging to the player. So we're going to dive into the Lost City here. So again, this is another one of those 2D sort of side-scroller levels, but there's a bit of a twist on this one. It's definitely got a slightly different vibe to what we've seen previously. Again, one thing I really like about Crash is that it does like playing around with the sort of feeling of each level. So one thing you've got to be careful of when you're hitting enemies in this game is that not all enemies kind of behave the same. The bats here, for example, you can hit them, but they'll still sort of pass between the 2 bats. You actually have to get rid of the second bat there to stop the bats from sort of coming through. The way certain enemies behave when you interact with them does mean there's a slight learning curve, because a lot of the enemies we saw early in the game, you could sort of run into them or you could spin them, but as we're kind of moving through the game here, a lot of these enemies are starting to develop their own sort of ways of dealing with. So for example, you can't just spin attack every enemy, because there are consequences. It might knock you out the way, it might push you backwards or forwards. You can also see with these bats, what I'm trying to do is avoid sort of getting hit by them. This enemy here can be quite annoying. You do need to sort of jump on him from the top. There is a red version of that enemy as well that will sort of like move towards you specifically. You can also see here they've been quite cheeky in that they've put a bunch of fire hazards around the outside. So if you're not paying particular attention to where you're jumping here, you could very well end up in one of those fires, and yes, they will kill you. There is a box to the left there, but I'm not collecting all the boxes and I don't really have a desire to sort of hit it. So this is the red variant of this enemy that I was talking about. Basically what it likes to do, it likes to sort of chase after you. So you can see here, we have to jump on there to activate it, and then we kind of have to draw it over here. If you try to take it on in like a head-on fashion, you are going to have a very, very bad time. Hit the checkpoint. I'm always glad to see checkpoints on levels like this. With these things here, you can sort of cheese them sometimes, so if they push you off the edge, you can sort of push yourself back into it. But at the same time, some of the later levels, it doesn't allow you to do that because they kind of move in a way that's very unfriendly for doing that. So it's one of those things where you don't really want to be relying on jumping back into the level. Excuse me. Excellent. So we've got ourselves a third token here. And you can see this level's completely done away with the silver boxes. And instead we get this absolutely crazy sort of Wumpa Fruit station where you can basically get as many Wumpa Fruits as you want. But of course, if you're not paying attention, you will end up going down. We nearly fell off the end anyway, because like Crash kind of slipped off the edge and I was a bit worried he was going to go right down there. We've completed 12 of the 32 levels here, so you've seen a good portion of the game in this hour. We've got about 20 minutes left. I'm hoping that we can get to one particular level. There's one particular level I kind of want to get to, and I'll consider this a success if we get there. But again, look in the background, you can see Cortex's castle. Again, sort of the silhouette of it. It's sort of showing you that you're getting closer and closer to dealing with Cortex once again. We could get those boxes in the background, but I cannot be bothered right now. Did really well there not to die. I was expecting to die at least once on that level, so seeing that screen there is pretty interesting. So we're at Temple Ruins here. Don't remember this level. Oh, I remember this level. Of course. So this is another one of those levels that kind of mixes up the side-scrolling and the 3D platforming. There's a lot of sort of darkness in this one, and the aesthetic here is very different to anything we've seen so far. Okay. Oh no. So I pressed a bit too hard on the D-pad and I ended up sort of going way too far. So there goes the dream of getting all the boxes on this level, but to be honest I wasn't really thinking about that. Excellent. It's all about the precise jumps. It's all about the precise jumps. And you can see the bats this time are actually coming towards us. If you don't like spiders, look away now. Just gotta be careful because those spikes can stick in us and it will kick us back to the starter level, which I really don't want. So again, we've got another sort of fire puzzle going on throughout this level. So there's a checkpoint in the middle of these moving pillars. Once again, I rolled off the top of it, went down, but luckily we got the checkpoint, so I'm not too fussed about that. There's also a mask here which we can make use of. Was quite lucky there. I thought I was going to end up going down. This should give me another life. Of course, I spin off the Wumpa fruit I needed to get the extra life. That's 60 lives I've got. That's pretty neat. So you can see here the pillars are now starting to drop down randomly. We need to just make sure that I don't accidentally end up on one of those as they're heading down. I mean, I'm doing really well for lives. If nothing else, I'm doing insanely good on the lives front. And that is the end of that level. I'm pretty sure that the next level here is going to be, yep, Road to Nowhere. This is one of the levels that I was keen to get into this. So Road to Nowhere is massively infamous for just kind of its difficulty spike. I actually think the second version of this level is much more difficult. But as you can kind of see, this is not a nice level. The wooden planks that are kind of almost completely gone, if you land on those, you just fall straight through. So it's not even worth sort of trying to land on those. You want to land on the ones that are brown, because you get like a second to react before they kind of disappear. And of course there are ice platforms here, so ice physics are in play in this level. You can try to cheese this level by running on the ropes at the side, but I don't think it's really worth it on this first one. On the second one, absolutely. The second version of this level is like an absolute nightmare. As we make our way across this rickety old bridge, it's worth remembering that Crash is not the best at sort of super precision jumping. You've got to kind of understand how much you've got to press the D-pad to make Crash do what you want him to do. Because if you just sort of lug the D-pad down all the way, Crash is going to do the maximum jump, and you don't really want that on this level. This is about precision. Okay, excellent. And now we're just kind of seeing lots of ice and lots of rickety parts of the bridge. This is where things get a bit silly. This level, like I said, this level is kind of noted. And we got all 3 of the tokens. Very nice indeed. Very surprised I haven't died so far. Normally I struggle on this level quite a lot. So you can see here, we do need to hit that TNT to get this box to bounce up like that. So we're going to save here, and then we're going to go back into the level. Huh. Okay. I have a feeling that this has crashed, which is going to be interesting because we've just saved. Give me a second, I'll see if I can fix this. So unfortunately the game did actually crash there, which is very unfortunate because, you know, I was doing really well on Road to Nowhere there. As you're going to see here though, when you load into the game, you can just sort of jump straight back in. The only downside is that you don't get to carry your lives with you, so all those lives that we just got are now gone. But you can see, but because we saved on that level, it's actually pushed us to the next level. I'm actually going to go back and finish off Road to Nowhere here. It's very unfortunate that that happened, but at the same time, like, you kind of expect some jank every now and then. I mean, at least now these lives are actually going to be useful for me when I'm collecting them. There was actually a life at the top of those boxes. I don't think I got that the first time round. I just got rid of one life and then it gave me another one anyway. Just gotta be careful here. Make sure I time these jumps correctly and make sure that I'm not doing anything that could potentially get me to fall down. Luckily on this level the checkpoints are pretty nice. They're pretty well spaced out. Oh, I knew as soon as I was about to jump there that I'd messed up because I had my thumb right down on the D-pad for some reason. I saw the hog there coming back towards me and I panicked a bit. I thought it was going to sort of move into me. If you do get hit by the hog, you do sort of get kicked back to the last checkpoint, so it is worth sort of taking into account where that hog is going to be. Quite how that hog can move across this plane so easily, as you can see there. There you go, you got to see a live demonstration. This is where this whole retro hour goes in the bin, because I'm struggling here, and I didn't struggle the first time playing this level. It's just now. Of course, after it crashes, I struggle. See, that one was just carelessness. I just threw myself onto the wrong platform. I'm going to show you quickly. You can run on the side bits there. It does require you to be quite precise, which is one of the reasons why I don't like it, because precision is not my middle name at all. Going to jump here. We have gotten a bit stuck on this bit. Well, I have anyway. So I'm just going to try taking my time here. I just want to get to this checkpoint. Okay, cool. So the trick here is that you're not supposed to spin those turtles away. If you spin them away, you can't make the jumps here. Or you have to go on the ropes at the side. Okay, we're done with Road to Nowhere. Road to Nowhere, yeah, that caused me a lot of problems there after the crash. It's a shame because I think on the first one I was in line to get all the boxes, but it is what it is. We'll do Boulder Dash here. So this is the second Boulder Run level in this game. Obviously, the difficulty has been upped considerably. It's the same logic as before, just run away from the boulder, don't get caught up in the sort of scenery that's trying to block us, and we should be okay here. You can see some of these platforms are moving side to side, so you do have to kind of jump and hope sometimes that you're landing somewhere where there's not a bottomless pit. You can also see that the placement of those was quite mean. It was kind of designed to pull me left to right and then back again. You can also see that this boulder sequence has been a lot longer than anything we saw in the first level. Okay, we've got this. We've got this. Okay, Mr. Boulder, please don't crush me. I would like to finish this level. Okay, we've made it to the end. I don't think we can get all the boxes on this one though, because I did see a pink crystal there. There you can see it. Unfortunately, I think that we need to come back here when we have more coloured crystals. Oh yes, there's a whole bunch of boxes that we have missed out on. But that is fine. So here is Sunset Vista. This is another level that kind of has a big reputation about it. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this one within the hour limit for this. I'll play a bit of it and I'll just sort of show it off. But again, it's another one of those levels where you need to be really precise. Oh, and you can already see that that pushed me off there. Luckily I was able to fight back. So what happened there, that I jumped because they hit the mask, which was good, but unfortunately I jumped into the water, which was bad because it means that obviously, you know, back to the start of the level I go. Just gotta take my time there. Jumped on the head. So you can see now, I've just got to be careful with these bats. The game really does like making use of those bats. And that showcases why you've got to be careful with some of those enemies, because trying to spin attack something that was not wanting to be spin attacked was just bad for my health. Do I risk it? Do I risk it? Okay, I don't risk it. Again, it's all about timing in Crash Bandicoot. You've got to learn the patterns that each of the enemies makes as they're jumping around the level like that. Just wait for the bats to fly past. I'm not going to let this thing knock me off again. We got a checkpoint here. Excellent. Two lives in the middle. Love to see it. That was stupid because that was moving away from me and I thought I could catch up to it and I couldn't. And again, really stupid. As you've seen here, I'm making mistakes not because I don't know how to play the game, but because I'm trying to rush. And when you start trying to rush in Crash, the game pushes back on you pretty aggressively. There's a checkpoint here, we like to see that. Oh, lovely. So not only do we have to work out the timing for the bats here, we have to work out the timing for the flames. And no, we can't stand there, because if you stand there, the bats will just kind of come into you. I'm going to risk it here. Oh, that was so close. That was so close to being so bad. Oh, and it pushed me off. As I mentioned earlier on, some of these pushing walls here like this can be so nasty. And I tried to rush there and everything wasn't timed up right, so I ended up getting punished for it. I don't think I would have made it if I'd tried to go there. I thought it was going to go down by the time he landed, but I honestly think that's a good place to end things, to be honest. Crash Bandicoot 1 is one of my favourite games of all time. I've got so much nostalgia tied into this one. I know plenty of other people do as well. I might do a full playthrough of this on the channel at some point, so if people like what they saw here, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this game back in the day. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you find it a bit too difficult? And did you ever throw Crash off the front of the stage like this? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.